bringing new insights into the field of human resources management. We will then cross over immediately to another keynote, to opening remarks. This is from the Minister of Labor, Employment and Social Security of Equatorial Guinea, His Excellency, Mr. Alfredo Mitogo Mitogo. If we can have that address, those opening remarks, thank you.
Estimados participantes, me dirijo a todos y a todas en nombre del Gobierno de la República de Guinea Ecuatorial, en tanto como Ministro titular de Trabajo, Fomento de Empleo y Seguridad Social. Este año estamos celebrando la tercera edición del Foro Africano sobre Recursos Humanos, un evento que organiza el Gobierno de Guinea Ecuatorial, concretamente el Ministerio de Trabajo, Fomento de Empleo y Seguridad Social, conjuntamente con el Ministerio de la Función Pública y Reforma Administrativa, dentro de una colaboración público-privada con la empresa iCubPharm, promotora y creadora de dicho evento. En las dos primeras ediciones, 2020 y 2021, se celebró virtualmente a causa de las restricciones del COVID-19. En esta tercera edición se pretende que fuera de manera híbrida, con participación presencial y virtual, formato que no limita en ningún momento el desarrollo de los enriquecedores y productivos debates que se nos acostumbra a traer dicho evento de dimensiones intercontinentales, abordando la importancia del recurso más importante de cualquier organización, que es el ser humano, posicionando el capital humano en el centro de los debates, políticas, planes y acciones socioeconómicas de cualquier Estado u organización moderna. Este año, el evento se celebra bajo el lema Reinventando las mejores prácticas de recursos humanos para la fuerza de trabajo africana moderna. Y a la Organización Internacional de Trabajo, la cual nuestro país es Estado miembro, señaló la importancia del desarrollo del capital humano y de sus competencias orientado a afrontar los retos que nos impone el mundo actual y sus situaciones de crisis, a fin de que los Estados, en su conjunto y de manera particular, puedan responder a los grandes cambios y transformaciones que imponen dichas situaciones al mundo del trabajo. Estas transformaciones, catalogadas de profundas, están afectando a los actores sociales a raíz de la irrupción de la tecnología, la evolución demográfica, el cambio climático, la mundialización de los problemas de salud, el tráfico transfronterizo entre otros fenómenos. Por eso, el desarrollo de las competencias y las capacidades humanas adaptadas al momento debe ser fundamental para los Estados y sus gobiernos a fin de afrontar los efectos socioeconómicos de dichos fenómenos. En efecto, los resultados de este análisis condujeron a la OIT a la celebración de la Declaración del Centenario sobre el Futuro del Trabajo, adoptada el día 21 de julio del año 2019 durante la Conferencia Internacional de Trabajo, año en que dicha organización internacional cumplía los primeros 100 años desde su constitución. En esta declaración se tiene en cuenta entre los grandes temas las transformaciones en el mundo del trabajo y la necesaria adopción de un enfoque centrado en las personas por parte de los Estados miembros para poder hacer frente a un futuro que promete una era digital con estragos de las emisiones de carbono, dolido por las consecuencias y el impacto de la pandemia del COVID-19 y adolecido por las distintas actuaciones discriminatorias que sufren ciertas regiones. Para ello, se ordenó a los Estados miembros la adopción de ciertas medidas Entre ellas sobresalen las siguientes. Aprovechar el potencial de las tecnologías para lograr un trabajo decente. Promover la adquisición de competencias, habilidades y calificaciones profesionales para jóvenes, trabajadores mayores y para las mujeres, a fin de que puedan responder a las necesidades del mercado de trabajo cada vez más cambiante y dificultoso para permitir una fluidez durante la transición del sector laboral impuesta por la pandemia del COVID-19. Formular políticas eficaces destinadas a crear empleo pleno, productivo y libremente elegido, así como oportunidades de trabajo decente para todos. Facilitar la transición de la educación y la formación al trabajo, poniendo énfasis en la integración efectiva de los jóvenes en el mundo del trabajo. Apoyar el papel del sector privado como fuente principal del crecimiento económico y de creación de empleo, promoviendo entornos favorables a la iniciativa empresarial como las pequeñas y medianas empresas, las sociedades cooperativas, la economía social y solidaria, etcétera, etcétera. Para dar cumplimiento a estos mandatos de la Organización Internacional de Trabajo, nuestro país, Guinea Ecuatorial, país africano, en la intención de alinearse a las estrategias regionales de África, ha desarrollado actividades que coadyuvan al cumplimiento de estos objetivos o mandatos emanados de la Organización Internacional de Trabajo. En efecto, tras haber sufrido las consecuencias de la pandemia del COVID-19 y los estragos del incidente del 7 de marzo del pasado año, el país se ha esforzado con muchas acciones, tales como la implementación del proyecto sobre el fomento de la economía verde, donde se ha podido comprobar el potencial de los recursos humanos nacionales. La creación del Comité sobre la Recuperación Económica relativo a las consecuencias de la pandemia del COVID-19. La creación del Comité sobre el Clima de Negocios, sin dejar de lado la acción de formalización de la economía informal que lidera el excelentísimo señor vicepresidente de la República. Todas estas constituyen acciones pilares por las que el Gobierno pretende potenciar el sector privado nacional, con un enfoque basado en las personas que constituyen la base para la instauración de unos recursos humanos nacionales eficientes, tanto en el interior como en el exterior del país. Señalar igualmente que los recursos humanos se consolidan en el mundo del trabajo como la piedra angular para el desarrollo del sector, y para su potenciación se necesitan de iniciativas como estas de la empresa Highcube Farm, a la cual el Ministerio de Trabajo, Fomento de Empleo y Seguridad Social acoge con agrado y la apropia para poder cumplir los objetivos trazados por el Gobierno en la idea de dar apertura al país cara al horizonte 2035 y a la agenda de la Unión Africana. La decisión del Gobierno de apoyar esta iniciativa se justifica por el impacto social que se consigue con la misma, con el apoyo necesario que deben encontrar las empresas nacionales e internacionales instaladas en la República de Guinea Ecuatorial y por el necesario beneficio social directo con el que esperamos puedan obtener muchos de nuestros jóvenes profesionales que se encuentran fuera y dentro del país, a los que recordamos que tienen una mano extendida por parte del Gobierno a fin de construir todos juntos una Guinea Ecuatorial cada vez mucho mejor para todos en el cumplimiento de la filosofía y visión de país que proyectó su excelencia Benjamin Bazor desde el 3 de agosto de 1979. Para terminar, auguro esperanzas de que en esta edición 2022 los debates sean más fructíferos y que sirvan para poder abordar los principales temas que afectan a los recursos humanos africanos en general, a raíz de los desafíos por los que nuestro continente se enfrenta, y para Guinea Ecuatorial en particular, teniendo en cuenta nuestros rasgos singulares en el contexto de los mercados de trabajo de los países africanos, a pesar de la existencia de retos conjuntos con otros países. Por lo que, en nombre del presidente de la República, Su Excelencia Benjamin Bazoum, declaro el lanzamiento de las actividades del Foro Africano de los Recursos Humanos, edición 2022. Suerte a todos y muchas gracias.
Right. Thank you so much. We're very grateful for the opening remarks that we got from the minister. I picked out the fact that he said that he hopes that this edition will prove to be a fruitful discussion, and I do believe it will be. I have got some very esteemed, very knowledgeable and experienced panelists who will be taking us through our topic for the day. And just to reiterate, our topic for the day is reinventing HR best practice for a modern African workforce. So on our panel today, Mr. Raj Sipasad is the president of the African HR Confederation. Mr. Olusegun Mojid is the president and chairman of the governing council of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. Mr. Dominic Calhoun is the president-elect of the National Bar Association, and Mr. Amadou Sako is advisor for Africa at the International Organization of Employers. I introduced myself briefly. My name is Kudanya Shanu. I am the Chief Human Resources Officer for Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency. So without further ado, given the time that we have, and also the fact that we want to give some opportunity for question and answer, we'll go into our topic, reinventing HR best practice for a modern African workforce. And maybe I can start with, I could probably start with Raj. Maybe you want to dig into this topic right away and get us started.
Well, thank you, Kudu. The issue is, why do we consider or thinking of reinventing the HR? What is the reason for that? Now, obviously, there's been a number of factors in terms of how HR has evolved over the years, and would now wanting to reinvent it, we have to look at it being more modernized, etc., where we have a much more efficient workforce, and workforce that is willing to deliver within the organization, and also the importance of HR sitting at the table, being the major role player in an organization, and HR having to have able to make decisions at board level. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Raj. I just picked some interesting aspects that you quickly pointed out. They talked about modernization, you talked about efficiency, you talked about HR sitting at the table and contributing to effective board decisions. I think those are issues that we'll obviously talk about further as we go. Dominic, would you want to add, would you want to also contribute to this discussion?
Yeah, so what I would say when you're looking at the modernization, you're obviously talking about the globalization of the workforce. I'm an attorney, and the attorney in the United States, particularly based in Houston. The National Bar Association, which I serve as president-elect, is the oldest and largest bar association comprised of Black lawyers, judges, law professors, and students in the United States. And one of the things that we all know, when you're looking for talent and you're looking for growth, ensuring that the playing field is fair from a legal perspective is very important. Now, respecting all countries involved in Africa, when you're talking over 50, and ensuring that you are creating management systems that protect the rights and interests of your entire labor force are extremely important. And so as you look at the modernization, and as Raj put it, looking at making board level decisions, it's extremely important that as the world comes to invest in Africa and looks to work within your ever-evolving natural resources and human capital, it's important that those decisions are already made and the foundation is there as we begin to explore the globalization of the continent. So I think from a legal perspective, modernization and working within that global structure is going to be extremely important.
Okay, and I enjoyed, I can tell the legal background there. You immediately went into issues of equity and fairness. Those are critical issues in human resources, more so in this global village that you're talking about. Amadou, I can tell that you are raring to go. Amadou, you might be on mute, maybe.
Yes, Kuda.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, could you please say it again what you just said?
Oh, okay. I was saying I was just commenting on what Dominic touched on, the globalization of the workforce, and because of that, the need to make sure that there is equity. You've got a level playing field, given that you've got employees coming from all kinds of backgrounds and so forth. And I was saying maybe you might want to chip in there and give us some more insights as well.
Yes, so thank you again. Thank you very much. It's really, I'm really honored to be here in my role of IOE advisor for Africa at the IOE to talk about this important topic. Quickly, the IOE is the largest network of the private sector in the world. We represent more than 159 members in 150 countries and over 50 million companies across the network. So something that is very important to say is that from the very outset, I would like to say that those who follow the topic of the future of work will know that 4 global mega trends, so technological advances, climate change, changing demographics, globalization, and one recently major event that we all know, the COVID-19 crisis, they have profoundly changed and even revolutionized, including in Africa, not only the way we work, not only the way the work is done and business or organized among employers, but also the way we interact at workplace. So the future of work is really shaping our lives, providing society and businesses with opportunities as well as challenges. And business and workers are adapting to the important changes in the world of work. For example, automation, for example, will likely mean existing jobs or tasks could disappear or be fundamentally redesigned. And major changes will be needed in the capabilities and skills required by the labor market. As a consequence, all aspects of employment need to be adapted, including through policies, allowing businesses to seize the potential of the future of work and ensure that digitalization of economies leads to more and better work opportunities, increased productivity, and stronger sustainable growth. So I will stop here. Maybe I could elaborate on this point a bit later.
Thanks very much, Amadou. Olusegun, maybe you may also give us some insights in terms of which HR practices or that you think we need to reinvent as we go forward in the HR discipline. Maybe you can also tell us something from your perspective.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kuda. Let me start on this note that Yolanda, thank you for bringing me here. And I also want to recognize Raj. Raj is my president at the Africa Front, and I'm the general secretary. So I don't have another society yet. Let me recognize my president. Raj, good morning from here.
Thank you very much, Wajid. Thank you. Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's quickly say this. Believe me, the entire HR value chain needs some reinvention, because for me, reinvention is the fact that the old habits can no longer sustain us. Things are changing rapidly around us. And for years, I want us to know that we've been talking about globalization. And each time we say globalization, we add the acronym TINA. You can call it TINA. There is no alternative. And it keeps going, things keep going global and global. So if we're talking about modernization, it presupposes there is Stone Age. So in other words, we are asking of us to look into the future. And I want to say that in Africa, we have been modern. We have been modern for quite some time now. Therefore, I'm going to take reinventing as a way of rapidizing. Let me use that word. You may say it's a new vocabulary. Rapidizing what we have been paying lip service to. I'm going to be short about this. If you know how long we've been paying lip service to the issue of, virtual days, virtual that, work from home, flexi hour, and so on. And then we had this thing called COVID-19 that has brought some positive, despite the hardship it brought, has brought some positive things into the practice of HR. So, in other words, the entire value chain of the human resource function has to adapt, adaptability, as we move on into the future. So when we come back, we'll begin to break these things down, bit by bit. So let me just stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I just enjoyed this new word, rapidizing, which is like you said, that's the way we need to go. I'm just wondering, what is the major difference? Because we're talking about a modern African workforce. Maybe some of you can assist here. What are the major differences in the African workforce, say 5 years ago as compared to now, especially given the COVID pandemic that we had in the last 2 or 3 years? What are the key differences, and what are the implications then in terms of HR best practices?
Okay, Kuda, let me quickly probably say one or two. For instance, technology came to the fore. It's not that before 2020 that we didn't have technology, but we had this massive thing, resting mostly on our tables, gathering dust. And in fact, some of us were afraid of some of the things we could have done. Then early 2020, we had COVID hitting. We had businesses closing down. And then we had to quickly, and I want to say this to everyone on this call, I celebrate HR because we came to the table to rescue the universe at that particular point in time. HR was there for everyone. HR was the one going, when no one was going to work, HR had to be there. HR had to, visit and talk to everybody. How are you doing? And so we came to the party at that particular point in time. And how did we do that? We leverage on technology. And now going forward, we know that it's no longer business as usual. Don't get me wrong, everyone cannot work virtually. I know that some of us will still have to go to the factory. We don't have the expertise yet to produce those things from our various homes. However, things are no longer the same. You now know that it is no longer seeing is believing. You now know that from wherever you are, you can actually be productive and your performance can be measured. So for me, that is a major shift from where we are coming from to 3-4 years ago till now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I certainly concur that technology came to the fore. Even all these virtual forums that we are now having, it used to be almost mandatory. You want to board a plane, you want to go and physically be there, you're checking into a hotel and so forth. And so much has changed in a very short space of time. I just have a question, maybe one of our panelists or some of our panelists can also help as we explore this issue of reinventing HR best practices. The issue of virtual working and then effectively managing performance. How do we do that going forward? Raj, I see your hand is up. You can proceed.
Yeah, obviously, post-COVID, one of the major challenges for HR and in not only in Africa, but across the world is how to manage employees that actually return to work and employees that are choosing not to return to work. They find that it's more comfortable to work from home. They save on fuel charges and other things, and they have a different mindset. And many organizations are actually now having to try and manage that. And in terms of how do you performance manage an employee that is working from home, you might have schedules that they have to complete, etc. But it is still much difficult to manage. Like Mojeed said, that you got people that have to go back to work. You have a factory. The factory is dependent on a team. A team operates a machine. And if one or two missing, then there's a problem. That machine can be shut down, etc. So the result is for factory workers are going to the factory and working, and where admin people are working from home. That's also now start to create discrimination in the workplace. And it's a major challenge that everybody in the world is facing, and let alone Africa. In addition to that, we're having the situation that the post-COVID employees are still have not recovered fully from the loss in income, from the ill health, the loss in members of families, etc., etc. Now, if you talk about reinventing the HR, this is a new challenge that we are facing because it has never been before, this COVID-19. How are we going to manage our people going forward? That is going to be a major key challenge to our HR profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. I noticed from, okay, Amadou, please come through.
Quickly,
Yes.
I would like to quickly intervene on the on these points. Indeed, telework has completely changed the way we are working now. But I believe that effective teleworking, effective management in the context of teleworking requires a mentality shift. We have been used to work base, so to be in the office, to see our colleagues or managers sees us. But teleworking really requires a shift of mentality where we need to focus more on results than on being just present. And that also requires maybe skilling or reskilling managers to be able to manage within the context of telework. Which are the indicators that they must look at? Yes, as human, we were used to the presence in the office, but it's not the case anymore. So as a manager, which indicator must I look at? Which result must I look at? So human resources practitioner have a leadership role also to play, you know, in helping the managers to shift their mind, in helping the manager to get the skills to effectively manage telework. Thank you.
And if I can add to that,
Sure.
the struggle that's occurring on the African continent is no different than take the United States as an example. This context of adaptability, modernization, if you will, is something that we even experience here. As an example, before COVID-19, I still had to go down to the courthouse if I had legal issues that needed to be managed in front of a judge. Now we even have legal proceedings that happen similar to this Zoom call. Those things are an adaptability within my profession, but not only within the United States structure as a whole. So I impress upon you that as you are looking at new structures and ways to ensure, quote unquote, the modernization is occurring, it's most important to make sure that your structure, as Mr. Saku said, that your structure is in place, that the fairness and equity and how you manage your populace is very important. Whether you're talking performance-based measures to ensure that things can happen virtually in a proceeding, or as Raj said, if you have to come into the workforce and in the workplace for the factory, so to speak, making sure that you have all of the things that are necessary to ensure the protection of your people, especially during this COVID-19 and variant so forth era. Again, I can't stress enough that when you're looking at this, making sure that your legal frameworks are there to support the equitable fairness of how one is promoted, how one is managed, how one is does their work is going to be extremely important within the next couple of decades. The last thing I'll say, especially when you look at what's so attractive about the African diaspora, is that by, I believe, 2050, if I remember correctly, it is said that you all will have the largest and youngest workforce, bigger than China and India on that scale. And so if you're ensuring that as you look at human capital and you're investing in education and preparing your labor force, that you're making sure that you manage them fairly, you're going to have great success in the near future.
Thanks, Dominic. I'm actually seeing on the chats that this telecommuting discussion has created quite a bit of excitement. I noticed some comments there that are saying it's not a one or the other, but it's an aspect of seeing what works for your particular context, and it's therefore probably a combination depending on the different entities that we work for. I know that I don't know in the States where you are, but I certainly know in Africa there are some organizations that even came up with apps just so that they can track presence. And I think it's Amadou who talked about key indicators, more about results production rather than presence. But there are organizations that have even come up with apps so that they can track when you logged in, even if you're at home, when you took a lunch break, when you came back and so forth, which seems to be managing more presence than results. I don't know your take on this and what you also see from your end. Maybe you could give a brief comment on that. Dominic?
Oh, okay. I didn't know who it was directed to. I apologize. But
no,
I just go back to what I said before. So yes, you could look at the performance value and not just what you're talking about, right? So the app is tracking you when you sit, when you check in, when you leave. Let me say this. I used to work for a major energy company when I was in law school. One of the things that we had, and this is before COVID-19, is a key card. And so you would have to slide your key card into your machine. That told the main boss whether or not you were in the office. It was also how you tracked your time, right? And so at any point that I got to the office, I had to put the key card in. That was how I clocked in and out. If I needed to go to the restroom, that was what happened. You had to take the card because you had to use it to actually access the bathroom and then come back. All of my time was kept on that key card, but equally within that, the productivity is what I was being measured on. So the reason I say that is because some people will look at the key card example or the app at which you spoke of as purely an assessment of participation, whether or not you're logged on, whether or not you're here, and those kind of things. And may suggest to some that we are purely looking at whether or not a person is present. However, from a digital standpoint in a virtual world, when you are trying to communicate with staff and you're trying to make sure that you have the accessibility, it's one of those important things to ensure that we know as employers, because as an example, I own my own firm. So we know as an individual that we can make sure that we can communicate with our employees and the individuals that work with us. So I'm not sure whether or not, because I can't speak for everybody's individual company. I can't speak for your country either. But in some aspects, knowing that a person is at work and also respecting their boundaries as to whether or not they are logged on or not is sometimes valuable. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, it's important that your overall structure, as Mr. Sekou said, looks at the performance of an individual. And that is how you create the equity and fairness to ensure promotions happen, to ensure that you're protecting the health of your workers and that everything is taken care of for them.
Excellent. Amadou, anything you want to add or any key HR practices that we need to be touching on whilst we still have time?
A lot has been said, but I really think that to come back on the, when it comes to managing telework, I really think that a key component for a successful telework management is really trust. Trust. This is a very important word here. Trust. And for me, it comes with the mind shifting, you know, the shifting of the mindset. We need to trust employees. We need to trust employees. And besides that, we need also to focus more on coaching, on training. Let me tell you something important in Africa. You know, despite significant advances in literacy rates and secondary, tertiary education enrollment, skills shortage is increasingly felt in Africa. And this is revealing the existence of an alarming skills mismatch challenge. So rightly identified skills shortage and mismatches are among the main reasons for low productivity growth in Africa. So I do not think it will be an exaggeration if I pinpoint that low productivity growth and slow pace of skills formation, coupled with widening skills mismatches, both hard and soft skills, are the principal drivers of Africa's protracted labor market challenges, characterized by extreme cases of informality, working poverty, and underemployment. So the root cause of low productivity and the low pace of skills development in turn is the lack of an enabling business environment in Africa compared to other regions. So in view of all these facts and challenges that I've just outlined, upskilling, reskilling, and lifelong learning must really become priorities within African companies. Skills development must lay at the heart of African HR professionals' preoccupation, not only to answer to the current company needs, but also to follow the fast pace of innovation globally, including technological innovation. Because without robust skills-based effective adoption, first, of new technology will not be possible. And technological advances and digitalization, they drive skills needs, while skills, they determine the extent to which technologies can be used effectively. That's what I had to say on this point.
Thanks so much, Amadou. Olusegun, please, you may come through.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I couldn't help but applauding Amadou when he mentioned the issue of trust. And I also know that Dominic, as a lawyer, he agrees on the extent of trust. And I'm going to bring that to what I call dual responsibility, both on the part of the employer and the employee. We've got to agree that we are both responsible. Well, I've heard of the app that is monitoring you. You know, we've had that all, you know, for a long time, even in this climate in Nigeria. At the advent of the telecoms and some other multinationals, I mean, you can't even get into the premises without your swipe card. You can't even go anywhere in your office without using the swipe card. So every day, your entire your entire movement is monitored. So it's not really new. However, in the dispensation we are in, dual responsibility, the employee must know that he has things to do, no matter where he's situated. And the employer also must provide the enablement, to let him or her perform. However, that one leads me to individual accountability. You see, I keep saying this, there's no joint accountability. Each employee has to know that he's been given certain tasks to do, and all he needs to do is to perform that task. That task. In Nigeria, employers are spending huge amount of money upskilling and developing. Our challenge is a bit, I wouldn't know if it is happening in other African countries. Our challenge is how to retain these skilled hands, which has led us to what we call JAPA in Nigeria. JAPA is, we call it the JAPA phenomenon. In fact, the CIPM, that is the professional institute I represent, will be having later this evening a whole session on what we call the JAPA phenomenon. What it is, let me give you a beautiful definition of it. I'm lifting that from something I saw recently on TikTok. Is the process of us exporting the best of our best, to go abroad and keep developing the already developed economy of where Dominic is. You see, that is, let me just give you that definition. And what does that do to us? That leads to, now we are beginning to see it, serious shortage of skilled manpower. I am in the recruitment space. Now it's so difficult to get the skill you are looking for. Yes, before now, the skills are not even there at the level we're looking for it. So employers bring them in, fresh young graduates, and we train them in our graduate training classes, in the employers graduate training program. Even now, to get that, because of the JAPA syndrome, a lot of our young ones are leaving the shores of the land in droves. So it's taking us even double, triple the time we used to get this case. So it has led, it has led us to that challenge, because these young ones are easily taken, even with their family, with the entire family. They're easily given, residence permits in these developed countries. So, as part of reinventing, HR has to, step up to see what do we do. Well, I have seen people asking us to, young ones to sign bond. That is another, is another topic entirely. I don't want to go into that. But what shall we do to mitigate against this? Thank you very much.
That's very interesting what you just commented on the difficulty in terms of skills retention. I want to give you an even interesting aspect as well that we're experiencing in Zimbabwe. We are not necessarily seeing the physical movement. We already saw a lot of that. We've been through a lot of that in Zim.
Yeah.
But what we are also seeing now is, because of technology, we are, and I think it's Amadou who talked quite a bit about it, in terms of technology, we are failing to retain skills locally, but the individuals are not leaving the country. A prime example are our chartered accountants. You will be amazed at the number of opportunities that our chartered accountants are getting to work virtually for massive firms, for big corporations out there, and they do it from the comfort of their homes. And you don't need to be in Europe, you don't need to be in West Africa, you don't need to be in North Africa, you don't need to be in the States for you to be able to work, to submit, and to earn a living. And we are experiencing that as well, which really begs the question, what do we need to do as HR practitioners? Because it's no longer just the aspect of somebody boarding a plane and off they go. They are within your country, but they are working elsewhere. That's globalization, and I think it has been spurred on, especially because of all these technological developments in the last couple of years and the pandemic as well. And yes, that is something I'm throwing out to you as colleagues and panelists to say, are you discovering that as well within the spheres that you are operating, within the experiences that you are having? Something for you to just ponder. Yes, Raj, please go ahead.
Sorry, Kudu, thanks. I totally agree with Amadou, Dominic, as well as Mujib. There's a number of things that we have to obviously look at. I mean, firstly, the talk about trust. You know, any employment relationship is based on mutual trust and respect. And if that trust is broken, there is no relationship. It is therefore important for us as employers and HR professionals is to actually bestow some kind of trust in our employees. The point about skilling, there's a massive shortage of skills, but there's another factor that one needs to look at. We get engineers and other technical staff coming out into the profession, but they can't find a job. Why can't they find a job? Because we are guilty in Africa where we exporting skills from Europe and everywhere else. And what are we doing? You know, we get employers and our line management says they got no time to train. Now, how are these people going to get the skill if they don't get the experience? So nobody wants to train them. Hence, they are unemployed or they're doing lower jobs. The other challenge that we are facing is the skill shortage in Africa is obviously some governments are actually encouraging skills and training, etc. But once our employees attain those skills or our people attain those skills, they are poached and gone to Europe. They do not give back to Africa. So these are major challenges that we are facing. And the reality is that to attract and retain talent, we have to do something very, very innovative, because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to lose good skills to Europe. And by the same, I mean, you see what happens in football. Football is a typical example. Most of them are applying their trades in Europe and other parts of Europe. So these are kind of challenges I believe we are, as HR professionals, are facing today. And we need to actually come up with something very, very innovative in order to try and redirect this entire thing.
Let me say this.
Sure, go ahead.
Being from the United States and living here, I want you all to know we have the similar challenge of employment gaps or skill gaps and folks leaving. It's just slightly different. Where I live in Houston, okay, there may be challenges or opportunities that are occurring in Washington, D.C. or New York City to which we cannot service. And that may take a young student that wants to work in the financial sector to New York, or it may take someone who wants to work in the government practice and arena to Washington, D.C. But what I would say when you're talking about what I believe is your greatest challenge and opportunity is that you have this emerging labor force of young talent that must be honed. And quite frankly, there has to be as it's been said, a trust level, but most importantly, a belief that if I give my energy and efforts to one company, that they are going to, in turn, give me the proper incentives and development, not only in my skill set and in the labor at which I'm given, but also in my entire life, right? Looking at healthcare, looking at retirements, looking at all those things. And quite frankly, even here in the United States, we may lose talent not only to other cities and states, but we may lose it to other countries. again, your greatest challenge and opportunity becomes with this young labor force. And so this is essentially what I mean. We are all now connected around the world by simply picking up a phone or your internet by a computer. I can go and look at changes and adaptation and things that are happening in Europe, Asia, the Americas, if you will, and see the opportunities there. And there may be, because of the structure that's created around the labor force and the opportunities that are afforded to them, a belief that I can go there and I can be well taken care of in respects to my employment. And so what my opinion is that you have to go back to creating the opportunities to ensure that the trust level is established amongst your own labor force and whatever country they live in and the company that they work for, so that the labor force believes that if I stay here or if I give my talents to this company or place, that they're going to be valued and that I'm also going to receive the necessary benefits that I'm looking for.
Thanks, Dominic. I just saw a very interesting comment as you were talking, which actually resonates with what you were saying, because you closed it out by saying, you need to be able, the employee needs to be able to see the incentive to stay. And I saw there's David who just posted on the chat there to say we need to focus more on staying interviews rather than exit interviews. I think those are the reinventions that we're talking about, rather than wait for the employee to have thrown in the towel and then you're running around and say, but why, and so forth. Maybe you need to keep your finger on the pulse and be aware of what is going on. What are the key issues that you probably need to tackle before they foster? Before they fester? What are the things that you can do proactively rather than doing an exit interview? You're now slamming the door shut, but the horse is long bolted. So it was just intriguing that as you were speaking, David was also typing in something that was really just resonating with what we were saying. It's something that has been coming up also on the chats is the aspect about trust, where I think it's very clear that a lot of our participants today are mentioning the importance of trust, that you need to be able to trust your employee. If they're working remotely, it shouldn't be so much about trying to keep tabs on them. It should be more about giving them the latitude to deliver and then measuring the results. Olusegun, you can come through, and then after that, Raj, you can also chip in.
Yeah, you see, the issue of trust, old habits, does not change fast. We are used to in-person working. We are used to supervising people. If not, I see, because I'm agreeing, and that's totally, I believe in the trust. We should be able to all you need to do, give me the assignment and I deliver. Believe me, then when the appropriate KPIs are set and you have your performance standard, it shouldn't be a problem. But then the issue remains: can we really trust ourselves? But that is not why I raised up my hand. The reason I raised up my hand, by now everyone, you know how large we are in Nigeria. You know our population. Okay, is as we speak, at times our conversation tend to skew, towards the organized private sector. However, in Nigeria, we have a very big public sector, a massive civil service. In fact, the Nigerian civil service is the largest employer of labor in our country. And the CIPM, the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, which I am the president, we are being intentional, because when we are talking of of reinventing, we are being intentional in reaching out to our colleagues in the public sector. The public sector of Nigeria is unique. Almost all the utilities, you may want to talk about privatization. No, I don't want to go into that. Almost all the utilities in this land are controlled by the public sector. our energy sector, which is the power behind the economy, is controlled by the public sector. So what have we done deliberately? We are focusing on the public sector, on professionalizing and reinventing the management of people in the public sector. And we are consciously telling ourselves in the private sector that we cannot afford to be arrogant, to forget the public sector, because if we allow the public sector to collapse in terms of managing people, the private sector will disappear. So that is one thing when we come to a discussion like this, we should always put them in the equation. How do we upskill them? How do they know the global standard for human resource practice? And we are working so much with our public sector counterparts to see how we can break the things that are already working in the private sector, how we can break it down, the entire value chain of human resources management, and so they too can key into that. And I can tell you, as we speak this morning, a lot of them are also on this call, and I just want them to know that we will continue to work together. And I want to really especially appreciate those of them who are on this call, that will continue to work together to elevate the profession of human resource to the level that we have it in the private sector, at the public sector too. Thank you very much.
I can't agree with you more. Governments all over the world tend to be the biggest employers. Raj?
I'm listening. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you had your hand up.
No, sorry.
Oh, all right. Okay. We're going to be switching over to the question and answer sessions. So I'm sure we'll get quite a number of questions that you will need to field there. So we can have questions posted. Participants can also raise their hands if need be, but we can also have questions posted, and we'll just take it that way. But we can move into a question and answer session. Let me just check what is on the on the chats at the moment. I did notice there was something. There was something about. Yes, there was something about Dominic had mentioned different standards of living in different in different states and so forth, and even in different countries. And there is a question here where the participant is saying, I agree with Dominic on the availability of better standards of living in other American states or Europe. As an HR person in Nigeria, I sometimes wonder what innovative solutions to present to management when employees' reasons for japping is beyond salaries and more about general standard or state of living in the country, and I presume Africa as a whole. So it feels like regardless of the innovations you come up with, there are prevailing conditions beyond your control. So this is someone, this is, sorry, I scrolled. This is Chinonye, who is actually saying sometimes we've got circumstances beyond our control, macroeconomic conditions, for instance. How do we proffer solutions to management? How do we come up with strategic solutions as HR practitioners in such circumstances? Maybe we could try and assist. Anyone would care to field that question to give some potential solutions?
Kuda, can you restate your question?
Okay, the long and short of it was there was an agreement with you to say that sometimes employees will leave because there are better working conditions in a different state, for example, if it's in the US, or even move to different countries. But this is because there is a better employee value proposition in terms of maybe conditions of living and so forth. And so the question is, the plea is, as HR practitioners, sometimes we then discover that we can't proffer something to management that works because these are macroeconomic conditions that are beyond our control. How do we deal with such circumstances?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it because I was the one that brought it up. So as an example, let me tell you, I live in Texas, and there's this constant competing condition between the state of Texas and the state of California, where Texans believe we have the best and greatest economy, a $212 billion economy. Some respects, if you took it outside of the United States, it would be the ninth largest economy in the world. Then you have California, same aspect. If you took it outside of the United States, I think it's the 7th largest economy in the world, if I recall correctly. The reason I'm saying that is because the challenges that you're facing when you're looking at countries with talent leaving, as an example, you can take South Africa and then go to Angola, or Equatorial Guinea and go to Morocco, what have you. The challenges there are similar here. But what's important is that when you look at those same things that we experience, cost of living standards, opportunities, economic climate, political structure, governmental assistance, all those things are similar to what we experience within one country. You're experiencing them between countries and between cultures and the differences there. So from an HR perspective, what I was really trying to hone on and make sure that we are looking at from the modernization perspective is that if I am working for your company, let's call it company A, there should be a belief that my value and how the presentation of opportunities are afforded to me should be systematic, right? So I should have an ability to progress within an organization based on the structure that's afforded. I think that that's first and foremost, that's key, is that we make sure that the structures are in place, that they are not one-sided, that they're not subjective, that if you give me a task and the task is presented, that I'm going to deliver, that is how my performance is based, and that's how my progression and within the company or even the public sector is based. The second is that the benefits to employment have to be established. So this is what I meant by, if we're looking at retirement packages, vacations, opportunities to work from home, especially during this pandemic, and how do you monitor that? All those things have to be laid out in what we call in the United States your welcome package, right? And within the offer. So specifically, these are the benefits. One of the key drivers for me when I was a younger person was that I had a company that I worked for who paid for my master's degree, not my law degree, but my master's degree when I got my master's in business administration. That was a key to me going to work for that facility. And it was an investment in me that they provided in my educational growth, which is why I wanted to work for that company. So what I'm saying in total is that from an HR perspective, making sure that the benefits are structured, meaning that I know exactly how I can progress if I want to stay within this company, and there's not going to be an offset, meaning that somebody just gets the opportunity because they know someone, or I don't want to call it nepotism, but that structure, that occurs. And so we're all equal in the opportunity of productivity and progression. But then number two is that you're making sure that your company is invested in its employees and its people. Ensure that you're invested to your competitors and looking not only across other companies within a country, but also the companies that are surrounding it.
Thanks for that, Dominic. The questions are flying in, so I'll quickly move to another question here. Matthew is asking, my question is, remote and teleworking is not traditional with African countries like with the developed nations. How do we train or orient HRC suites in Nigeria and Africa at large to understand the need to give trust to workers to deliver while working from home than micromanaging them? So, yeah, this whole
let me go for that. Kuda.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Kuda, let me quickly go that. Number one, I would love to let everyone know that the mentality of not invented here has no place. Again, I would love to do that. This issue of not is alien to Africa, is alien. is no longer valid. The world has actually become a capsule. It's no longer a village. So we should, both the employers, those of us in the C-suite and those of us who are followers should begin to have that mind shift that everybody should have an open mind. Both the follower and the bosses should have this open mind that this has come to stay. Earlier on, I spoke about the dexterous workers, people who have no privilege of working remotely. They have to be there. They have to be everywhere. Therefore, for those of us who have the opportunity to work remotely, both the worker, let me call it that, and the owners and the employers, we just have to keep, educating ourselves. We just have to keep on learning old habits and relearning new ones, and so that we can both move the enterprise forward. We shouldn't come as an employee. I shouldn't come with the mindset that my boss is having a fixed mindset. No, if your boss is exposed to the right sessions like we are having now, is able to present and show with figures, is able to present to management, and where necessary, remote work will be embraced. And where we know we cannot do that, we will do, the in-person thing. So I don't want to believe that in the generalization that the Africa C-suite, those are my colleagues. In fact, they are ahead of some of the younger generation when it comes to remote working. But I have counseled severally, do not just bandy word around. It's not a fad of the moment. Let us sit down and do the calculation and see how it's going to benefit the business. Because in the first instance, we are all here because of the business. If the business is not here, nobody is working in person, and nobody is working remotely. So I will stop there briefly.
Sure, Raj, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the questions that were coming up about employment law, as well as pay and compensation, etc. I mean, in totality, one needs to look at everybody wants more salaries, higher salary, as well as they want other benefits. And that's not only here, it's not only in Africa, but it's globally. Having said that, obviously, when you look at the CEO as well, the more the CEO earns, the more he or she wants. And the ordinary lower paid workers, the blue collar workers are not paid reasonably well. Now, pay and compensation is a key factor in people also leaving work. But I still think most importantly is that the culture of the organization. It is important that one has to understand what the culture is, how people are being treated at work. Even our management today, despite all the laws and all the training they have, they still treat employees badly. So employees don't only leave because they don't get paid well. They leave because the culture is not good. And Dominic spoke earlier on about nepotism, etc. I mean, how often you get people being deprived of an opportunity to go higher because of other people that is known to the bosses or known to certain HR, etc., and they can get the position. So basically what we need to do as HR practitioners, we need to become fearless in our management style, fearless in the sense that we need to tell line management, we need to tell the management that this is where they need to get off, because we continuously worry about allowing certain things to be done. And if we are not fearless enough in our jobs, then I think we should kiss ourselves goodbye and say we are not worthy of being in those positions.
Thanks for that, Raj. Somebody once said people do not leave organizations, they leave their bosses. So I think it is very much aligned to what you were saying as well. There's a question here which says, is it possible to replicate the Netflix HR model in Africa, bearing in mind that there are trust issues between the employer and employee? I think it is very much aligned to what you were touching on, Raj. I don't know if there is any additional comment that one of you would want to give in terms of that before we touch on another question. Okay, so I think that aspect of trust had been touched on.
No, yes, we've really dealt, Kuda, we've really dealt with the issue of trust. And again, we still have to be careful of generalization. I can tell you so many organizations in Africa who are doing this, who are working remotely, who are managing performance at the same time. Some of them don't even have any app to monitor your movement. You are given assignments and you deliver. That is it, because nobody is going to just allow you to run, free without delivering and bringing results. So it's not, we are not that backward. We continue to adapt. It's a global thing. We'll continue to adapt. For me, if you ask me, and if there's anywhere we know that we can be of assistance, e.g. in Nigeria, please, you can get in touch with the CIPM and we'll see what we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's reality. It is about being open-minded and moving with the times, which is basically what our topic is about today. We're talking about reinventing HR best practices for a modern African workforce. So it is about moving with the times. I will just summarize this question because we are almost out of time for questions. It was a lengthy question, but the long and short of it was the participant said that it seems only operations or factory workers are not able to work remotely because they need to be actually physically involved in the production system. But the question was, with the advent of artificial intelligence and robotics and more of that happening in operational environments, in factories and so forth, the question was, what will performance measurement look like and whose performance will be measured when organizations are really using more of robotics and artificial intelligence? So it's a bit of a lengthy question, but maybe we can just give a quick step before we round up the Q&A. Anyone want to take on that? What will performance measurement look like when we have got more robotics? Go ahead.
That is beautifully futuristic, and also even right now we have robotics. In fact, it is easier for the performance of robotics to be measured, and I also believe that it's going to still be a kind of side by side working for now, and I am sure that there will be, every day we are having apps developed to measure some of these things. I would rather not say that. What I would rather counsel is there's a word I got from one of my favorite authors. It's called, the word is metathesiophobia. Metathesiophobia. Yeah. That you see, I want to encourage. You can Google that. so I want to encourage everyone on this call. That is not the way to go. It's not the way of fear. The change will continue to come in such rapidity that, in fact, it could be overwhelming at times. But let us stay focused. As Raj said, let us be fearless. I'm using it from another context. Just before I hand over to somebody else, I want to say good news, Nigeria. I've seen a lot of comments on the labor law. That last year, a tripartite body was put up, consisting employers, labor, and the government, to review our labor laws. And I think that report, normally in Nigeria, you submit a white report, and then you begin to trust that the white report will become, will be enabled and it will be executed. But that has been done. The labor law, the committee went through it. NECA, the labor union, and the government were well represented in that committee. And I'm sure that any moment from now, we will begin to have at least to our Nigerian audience this morning, I thought I should give that feedback. And whatever is going on, CIPM, the labor ministry is giving the CIPM the opportunity to join the team. We'll try and see what you can do continually. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Unfortunately, yes, I see questions are still coming through, which shows that your expertise was well valued. We have unfortunately run out of time. So we will be moving on to the next section just before we close our forum for today. Just to say, sorry, Raj. Okay.
One comment I want to make, because there's a couple of people are saying if HR is reporting to the CEO and they are threatened and victimized by the CEO, who should they take it up with? And that's a very valid question, because that is very true. It's happening all the time. And victimization is terrible. And if you go against the CEO or the board or whatever. Having said that, we have now labor laws in place, like Ojit said about Nigeria's labor law. South Africa has got one of the most advanced labor laws in the world. But having said that, the organizations are still victimizing employees. There's sexual harassment that's taking place for jobs and all types of things. Having said that, my advice would be that if you can't get your CEO to back down, then you need to now officially lodge a dispute with one of the organizations that deal with dispute resolution, etc. I know people are afraid of losing their jobs, but it's time that we need to stand up to the things that are wrong in our organizations.
Thanks for that, Raj. Thank you so much. Okay, so just some key terms that I'm taking away from today's discussion. The aspect of globalization. One of our panelists actually said this is no longer the Stone Age. Definitely it's not. And globalization is a fact. Technology has accelerated this phenomenon. And one of our panelists mentioned the fact that the use of the acronym TINA, there is no alternative. We need to move with the times, and we have to be adaptable. I think a key principle that we learned is the aspect of trust. In this modern working environment, trust is fundamental for us to be able to get productivity. There was the issue of skills retention, and that was touched on a bit. There is the aspect of coaching, learning and development. Unfortunately, because of our time, we've not been able to really get much into that, but that is also important, how we structure our learning and development going forward in this environment that we're operating in. And then the Japa syndrome, I think we learned a lot about that. So it's been an interesting discussion, and thank you to the panelists, and certainly thank you to all the participants. It was a captivating engagement. At this stage, I now must hand over to the Director General of Labor in Equatorial Guinea, Mr. Don Engel Francisco Nkomo Chama. He will give us the closing remarks. So if I can hand over to the Director General. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kuda. That was excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well done, Kudu, in your managing of the sessions.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
We are just waiting for the closing remarks.
¿Se me escucha? Ok, ¿se me escucha?
Sí.
Sí. Ok. En principio, a nivel del gobierno de Guinea Ecuatorial, queremos agradecer la actividad, como lo ha señalado el excelentísimo señor ministro. Nosotros nos encontramos con circunstancias parecidas en el entorno mundial y en el entorno africano, y esto hace que Guinea Ecuatorial se posicione de perspectiva singular igualmente por nuestra cultura. Vale, voy a intentar ralentizar y después nuestro enfoque lingüístico, que es un poco singular. Y esto afecta a los jóvenes demandantes de empleo en nuestro país. Debo valorar en alto la organización del evento y agradecer esta organización, porque África estamos en una situación de desventaja para enfrentarnos a la globalización. Por eso yo les digo a ustedes, les felicito y les considero unos grandes campeones, porque han demostrado el espíritu de lucha que caracteriza actualmente a los pueblos. Enfrentarse o afrontar la tecnología en el trabajo, combinado a la necesidad de modernización o reinvento de las capacidades humanas, es una tarea muy compleja en África y en Guinea Ecuatorial. Por esto se han remarcado muchos aspectos aquí, cuales nosotros hemos tomado buena nota y estamos intentando transmitirle a la organización un espíritu de compromiso del gobierno de Guinea Ecuatorial en el cumplimiento de las normas internacionales de trabajo que proceden de la Organización Internacional de Trabajo. La política de empleo de Guinea, alguien lo dijo, que África tiene una de las mejores leyes del sector y de recursos humanos. Pero lo que nos limita a los estados africanos es la conexión entre el sector privado, el sector público y las organizaciones de la sociedad, es decir, lo que llamamos los avances siempre suelen proceder del sector privado y los gobiernos deben estar dispuestos a apropiarse de estos avances para salir adelante y sacar. De hecho, en África sigue habiendo brecha de conexión y de simbiosis entre el sector público, el sector privado y las organizaciones sindicales, por ejemplo, las organizaciones de trabajadores, los sindicatos y las asociaciones pasando. Por esto, los recursos humanos se ven siempre atraídos hacia donde creen que pueden mejorar sus condiciones como sector. Y nuestro gran desafío es por eso uno de los grandes desafíos es atraer y mantener estos recursos humanos en África. Vemos cómo jóvenes africanos buscan empleo en Europa o en América para volver a trabajar en sectores como agricultura. Cuando sabemos que África es la sede donde mundialmente podemos trabajar y desarrollar el sector de agricultura sin necesidad de salir. Por lo tanto, nosotros mostramos, como hemos señalado, como nos señaló el señor ministro, Guinea contiene una legislación laboral y de fomento de empleo apta para asistir en esta nueva transformación de la mano de obra africana. Y por esto nosotros hemos señalado que el mundo del trabajo en Guinea Ecuatorial está en un proceso de transformación. En el año 2021 hemos actualizado la Ley General de Trabajo. En Guinea Ecuatorial se contiene legislación sobre la capacitación obligatoria de las empresas empleados y todos estos proyectos, planes y actividades requieren el compromiso del sector privado. Por esto creemos en iniciativas como el HR Forum y creemos en otras que sí pueden también lideradas por privado a fin de que puedan garantizar, puedan retener y puedan desarrollar la fuerza del trabajo y afrontar los desafíos de la transformación del mundo del trabajo. Entonces, dicho esto, en representación del señor ministro de Trabajo, no nos queda más que agradecer esta organización, augurar esperanza de que el mismo evento que tenemos señalado como el Foro Africano sobre Recursos Humanos vaya a ser un éxito como las dos anteriores ediciones y a juzgar por la calidad de los panelistas y del valor de la forma de explicar y el valor de los temas abordados, creemos que si se lleva a cabo este evento como se tiene planificado, el mundo del trabajo, el mundo de los negocios de Guinea Ecuatorial y de África estará asistiendo a una nueva transformación y a afrontar a la nueva África y al África que todos nosotros deseamos. Muchas gracias por habernos atendido y esperemos que el evento llegue a ser un éxito. Muchas gracias y enhorabuena por todo y por habernos escuchado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the wise words from the Director General. Thank you. All right. Now I will ask Mrs. Yolanda Asumu to give us the closing remarks. She's the founder and promoter of Africa HR Forum. Over to you, Mrs. Yolanda Asumu. Yolanda.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Director General of the Ministry of Labor of Equatorial Guinea. We do really appreciate your words of encouragement and orientation. And good afternoon to everyone. I would like to give a big thanks to our speakers, moderator, and over 650 registered delegates from around the world for your excellent engagement during today's Africa HR Forum 2022 launch discussion regarding reinventing HR best practices for a modern African workforce. I would equally like to thank our co-organizers, the Ministry of Mines and the Ministry of Labor of Equatorial Guinea, the African HR Confederation, and the IQ Farm team. Thank you for your rich contributions, which have certainly set the stage for deeper and more focused discussions during the Africa HR Forum and Career Fair 2022, which will hold from the 24th to 26th of October of this year. We will announce more details about this upcoming event on our website and also on our social media channels on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I would like to also encourage you to join tomorrow's Africa HR Forum Author Series session. My colleague will share the registration for this session in the link or in the chat box. And on that note, I look forward to seeing you again at the Africa HR Forum Career Fair in October 2022. A huge round of applause and a standing ovation to all of our participants today. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Greetings
Bye,
from Lagos,
everyone.
Nigeria.
Thank you all very much.
you.
Bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Hasta luego.